everybody. Today with Dokeys, we are going to be going over some of our 5 most basic crochet stitches and things you would need to know how to do. So if you know how to do these 5 things, you should be good to follow any basic pattern, and majority of our beginner patterns are going to be only these stitches. So if you know how to do these 5 stitches, you should be golden. So the stitches we're going to learn today, we're going to talk about a chain, we're going to talk about single crochets, and we're going to talk about increasing and decreasing, and then we're going to learn the magic ring alternative that we use in all of our projects and videos. And we're also going to go through just a regular magic ring in case you want to learn how to do a regular magic ring. So let's go ahead and jump right in. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to be going over the stitches. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy. We're not going to be making anything. We're just going to go super slow through this. And I'm going to talk you through some of the different things you would need to use these stitches for. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to talk about a chain stitch. So to start a chain, you're going to need to create a slip knot. Now, there's a few ways you can create a slip knot. My personal favorite way, the easiest thing that I do, and this is how you're going to start an actual magic ring as well. I like to hold the working yarn in my non-dominant hand, pinching it between my thumb and my index finger, and then grab the working yarn and we're gonna wrap it around like an X around the first 2 fingers, and then hold it with these 2 fingers. So you have this little yarn tail like that. Now, when you're doing an actual magic ring, you're gonna do something a little different, but right now, again, we're just doing the chain. So then I like to take my crochet hook, and you're going to go underneath this one right over here that's on top of the middle finger. Grab the working yarn and pull it under, and then twist the crochet hook so it kind of creates that. And then grab the working yarn again and pull it through like that. Then use your index finger to hold right here. Let it go, grab that small yarn tail, and just gently pull. Now that method created a slip knot and a chain 1. If you just want a slip knot, there's a bunch of other ways you can do a slip knot. That's just my favorite way to start anything. It's really fast to do the chain 1 with it. So yeah. All right, we're gonna start by just making a chain, and this is gonna be, you can use chains for a lot of different projects. If you're making any sort of clothing or accessories, you're going to mostly be working with a chain. So it's definitely helpful to know how to do, especially as you're getting started. So all you need to do for a chain is you're just going to yarn over. So you're just going to pull the working yarn over your hook and pull it through. That's literally all you're doing. Over and over again. Yarn over, pull it through. Yarn over, pull it through. And as you go, making sure your tension stays fairly even and everything, you're just going to end up with a nice little chain is what we call this. Whoops. So this is going to be definitely the most useful thing. This is how you're going to start a lot of projects. So definitely useful. All right, now let's go into the next one, which I'm going to do a single crochet next. And we're going to start with this chain. So if you're practicing the way that we're making all of these first 4, you can just keep going like this. You don't have to restart your yarn every time. So we're going to keep our chain because we're going to learn to single crochet. So as we're going to start, you're going to make sure that you're holding your hook and yarn in a comfortable position for you. It kind of depends. It's not going to be the same for everybody. We do have a couple more tutorials on how to hold your yarn, how to hold your hook. This is just how I do it. So I like to have the piece, especially when I'm working into a chain, I like the chain to be in between my two fingers right here, and then the working yarn is kind of tucked under these fingers. And then I hold my hook. Honestly, I switch depending on what I'm doing and things like that. For the most part, I like to have my index finger able to kind of help control the yarn right here, kind of help hold it in place or things like that. And then I usually just work mostly with my thumb and middle finger, and then the other two are just kind of down here. All right, so to single crochet, if you're working into a chain like I am, we're gonna start and you're just gonna go into one of these areas. So as you can see, there's one that is right next to your hook, this very first one. If you're working in a chain, you'll never just go right into that. You always have to skip that first one and go into the second one. So we'll go even, I'll show you again. So if you're working backwards, this first one, remember you're gonna skip that, go to the second one. You're gonna insert your hook into the chain, so now it's gonna come out on this side. And then you're gonna pull the yarn over your hook, so it's gonna hook into that little spot. You're gonna pull it through and up like so. So now you have those two stitches, the two loops on your hook. And then you're gonna take your working yarn, you're gonna wrap it over again, over your hook. That's called yarn over. And then you're gonna pull through both of those loops. And that's a single crochet. So we'll go through it again. Insert your hook, grab the yarn, pull it through, and then yarn over and pull it through both loops. Okay, and as you go, obviously you'll get faster. The more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. You'll kind of start to get the hang of it, and it'll just be super easy. If you know how to single crochet, you can do pretty much every single stitch. Or a lot of projects, not every single stitch, sorry. If you know how to single crochet, there's a lot of projects that you can do. I mean, a lot of amigurumis just use single crochets. So, yeah. Single crochet, definitely the most basic stitch you can do. So that's what a whole row of single crochets is gonna look like that. And then this isn't applicable to our 5 stitches, but this is applicable to what I'm doing. If you're ever working from a chain and you're working in rows, every time you reach an end, you have to chain 1 in order to keep going. And then you'll flip the piece. All right, so I'm just gonna do a couple single crochets to get to the middle of my piece so I can show you a little bit easier. All right. Okay. The next stitch we're going to learn is an increase. Now an increase is going to be probably the second easiest stitch you will learn. If you know how to do a single crochet, you can do an increase. Because guess what an increase is? It's just 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Nothing fancy. So you're going to insert your hook into that stitch. Same motion, you're going to pull that yarn up, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. Now normally we would go over here next, right? We would go to the next stitch. For an increase, you're going to go right where you went in last time. Right in through there and do another single crochet. So then if you look at it closely, you should be able to see that there's like one coming up here for 1 single crochet and one coming up here for a second. So we have 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Now what that does is it's going to add a stitch to your round count. So if you're working around, or even in this case, if you were to continue going down the row with just your regular single crochets, I'll finish off that round just so I can kind of show you. Obviously you're doing 1 single crochet in every single stitch of the round. All right. So all that increase did, you can kind of see it right here. It kind of comes to like a little point right there. That's because there's 2 stitches right here. So you did 1 in every single one, but then 2 there. So you added an additional stitch to the round. That's all an increase is going to do, is it's going to add stitches. So that's how you're going to increase the size of a project. So if you see it in like an amigurumi, if you're working outwards and you're building it, making it bigger, you're going to be increasing. So that's definitely a useful tool. And even if you're not doing amigurumi, usually if you're doing any sort of like clothing, if you're doing like hats or scarves or anything, you're most likely going to be using increases because you want to get bigger. Sometimes decreases with clothing, but for the most part, increases are probably going to be your other easiest one that you'll need to know. So now I'm going to do my chain 1 so I can start another row for you. Again, I'm going to do like 3 single crochets just so I can get to the middle to show you the next stitch. All right. Next stitch we're going to learn how to decrease. So decrease is you're going to combine 2 stitches into 1. So you will be decreasing your amount of stitches in a row. So there's a couple different ways to do a decrease. There's a regular decrease and an invisible decrease. I'm going to show you first how to do a regular decrease, and then I'll show you the invisible decrease. So for a regular decrease, again, if you have the motions of a single crochet down, this should be fairly easy for you to do. It's not too much different. So you're going to take your hook, you're going to insert it into the next stitch, grab that yarn, and pull up a loop. Now normally for a single crochet, you would pull it over and through those 2 loops. We're not going to do that yet. With those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull up that loop again. So now you should have 3 loops from 3 different stitches on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So now we just took 2 stitches, combined them into 1. So now on our next row, we will have 1 less stitch, if that makes sense. I'm going to do a single crochet right here, and then I'm going to show you an invisible decrease. Now again, for every increase, for every decrease, there's a few different ways to do it, even with like the invisible decrease. Some people will do it differently. This is just how I do it, how I like to do it. It's the easiest way to work in afterwards. It's the easiest way to kind of visually see it. So this is just for me. There's different ways to do it, obviously. So for the invisible decrease, the other kind of thing you need to know is what is the front and back loops of your stitches. So if you're looking, I'm going to pull that out just for a second so I can show you. If you're looking at your piece like this, you could kind of see how there's 2 strands of yarn for every single stitch. So if you're looking at your piece, obviously with an amigurumi, it's a little bit different than like a flat piece like this. But anytime you're wanting to go in the front loops of a stitch, it's going to be the one closest to you. Back loops is going to be on the other side. So for me, for example, let's get this back in. Okay. If I want to go in the front loops, you're just going to go, so looking at the top, you can kind of see how there's like a middle right here. So this one, in the front, let me get it into the front loop. So now you can see my hook is in between those 2 loops. So again, this one is the one closest to me. That's going to be a front loop. If your pattern says back loop, you're going to go in to the back like that. So then you're in the back loop. So that's kind of something you need to know, but for an invisible decrease, but it's not something that's going to be a huge thing in beginner projects. You may come across it every once in a while, but For the invisible decrease, you're going to insert your hook into the front loop of the next stitch. Now, don't do anything with the working yarn yet. I'm going to even drop it so I'll show you I'm not doing anything with it yet. You're going to take your hook, so you're still in this front loop, and you're going to go right into the front loop of the stitch after that. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. Again, none of it's the working yarn. You've got this one that we started with, and then you've got 2 front loops on your hook. Now we're going to grab our working yarn. We're going to hook it over our hook, and I'm going to pull it through the first 2 loops. So we're going to pull it through those front loops. Now you have the 2 loops on your hook, so yarn over and pull it through. Some people just pull through all 3 loops at one time. You can do that. It makes it a little tighter and a little harder to go into on the next round, but you can do it. So that's the invisible decrease. The difference between that is sometimes with the regular decrease, you'll get kind of some weird bumps from those stitches in the front there. So sometimes the invisible one just makes it a little, like I said, it's invisible, so it's going to be a little less visible. But it is a little more challenging to do, so it's kind of up to you. They're both going to do the same thing. They're both combining 2 stitches into one, which is what we want for our decrease. And then you would just continue following your pattern, continue crocheting as you would, and that's the decreases. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and unravel this whole part, because now we're going to move on to the magic ring and a magic ring alternative. So for a magic ring, so that chain and like what I was doing where I was going back and forth, that's a really good way to start like square projects or flat projects. For a magic ring, you're going to be working in a round, and you're going to be going around and around and around. So that's kind of what you're going to use the 2 for. A magic ring, some people think is really complicated. I was taught it in a way that made it super easy, and I completely understood it. I didn't struggle with it, so I'm going to try and teach it just as well as I was taught, hopefully. But we're also going to show you another alternative. All of our patterns, if you read one of our Okey Dokeys patterns, it's going to say magic ring alternative on there instead of a magic ring. So all of our projects are made with a magic ring alternative. However, you can switch it out for a regular magic ring if you think it's easier. We just like to keep our projects very beginner friendly, so that's going to use this magic ring alternative. But again, do what you want. So let's start with learning that magic ring alternative. So this is the magic ring alternative that you will see us do in all of our videos. We'll do it in all the patterns. Just anytime it says magic ring alternative, this is what we are doing here. So again, you're going to start with that slip knot. Again, do it however you want. This is just the way I feel is easiest for me. So I'm doing the exact same thing I did with the chain earlier. Now, you're just going to create a chain of 2. So if anyone knows, or if you hear this anywhere else, the chain 2 method is going to be the exact same thing as our magic ring alternative. We just kind of named it magic ring alternative for us, for our pattern purposes, but same thing. It's the chain 2 method. So you're going to start with the chain 2, and then if your pattern says magic ring alternative 8 single crochets, this is how you're going to do it. So I'm going to show you specifically just with like 8, or actually let's do 6. We'll do 6 for this purpose, but then obviously you would just do the number that it says. So again, remember what we learned with the chain. You're never going to go into this first one. You're always going to go into the second one. So we're going to go into the second, and we're going to just do a single crochet like normal, like we learned last time with the single crochets. So there's 1, right? And so now you're looking at this, you're going, I have no more chain left. What am I supposed to do? You're working all for our example, like I said, we're doing 6. You're doing all 6 in that one stitch. So you're going to go back into there, single crochet. So now you'll have 2, back in, single crochet, and now you'll have 3. And you'll see it's kind of starting to form, like right now we have a little half circle. And then this is where it gets kind of complicated, because now you've got this little guy and you're working in there. You don't really know what to do with it. So when I'm holding it, I like to pull the working yarn and I like to just move this yarn tail down to the bottom. I don't see it. It's not confusing me. Anyways, we're going to keep single crocheting. So that's 4. That's 5. And that's 6. It can get kind of tight to do depending on how tight you do those chains and how many stitches you're doing. But now you see we've got a little circle going. So that would be the magic ring alternative. Obviously, you're going to have a little tiny hole right there. If you're doing like 12 stitches, you might have a little bit bigger hole. But then you would obviously just continue crocheting around in a circle, you know, just following the pattern, whatever it says to do depending on the project. But obviously this is just going to create a ring. Like you're now working in a circle around is what it's called the whole time. Sweet. Now we're going to learn everybody's least favorite stitch, a magic ring. I personally like doing a magic ring. I think it's easy. So like I said, I'm going to try and teach it the same way I was taught because I actually felt like it was really easy to learn. But some people think it's really hard. So totally up to you. That's why we also have a magic ring alternative. All right. So I'm going to start it the same way. Hold yarn tail like that. Grab your working yarn. Wrap it in the X. We're going to go under. And we're going to pull up a loop. And this is where it's different. So, now we have that loop. You're still going to do that chain 1. But now we're going to keep our fingers in this X form. And you're going to kind of have this hole right there, you know, where you're lifting it off. That's where you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to go under in that same spot. Grab the yarn, pull up, and now you're essentially single crocheting. You're just going into this little hole, grab the working yarn. So that would be like 2, and you're just going to keep going like that. And then you'll see it start to kind of form that. Again, in through there. We'll do 6 again, just like we did with the magic ring alternative. Okay. So then, once you have as many as you need, it should look something like this if you have 6. You're going to drop your fingers, like so. And keeping this, your hook there and everything, I like to pinch. You're not pinching this tail, you're kind of just holding your fingers here to hold it in place, and then you're going to grab this little tail and you're going to pull. Now you have no gap. You've created that circle. So then you would continue crocheting over here to keep going in the pattern. So, like I said, magic rings can be a little tricky, and especially depending on what yarn you're working with. Like our Dokeys yarn is fantastic for magic rings. Some yarn gets a little tricky to pull through or it breaks. So if that happens, you can always use a magic ring alternative. But yeah, so then you're going to have your circle like so. Exact same for both of them, but yeah. So those are definitely the most basic stitches that I do, that we do in all of our patterns. So if you ever get an Okey Dokeys pattern and it's a beginner one, for the most part, you're only going to be doing those stitches. The only other ones you might do would be that you would probably see in some of our beginner patterns. A color change would be something that you might see, which we have videos on all the stitches that you'll see, but color changing. But again, you're still doing single crochets or whatever, you're not doing any new stitches. Some of our patterns are listed as a beginner, but they might have like one single double crochet or half double crochet or treble crochet in there. But again, if you know how to do a single crochet and you've got those motions down, then you should easily be able to pick up a half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet. Any of those should be fairly easy for you to kind of pick up really quickly on, and it should be a little easier for you. So hopefully that video helps. Hopefully you feel a little more confident in your abilities to create some of our beginner patterns. And again, if you use this video and it helps you with anything, let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. We also love to see your guys' creations, whether it's of ours or whether it's with our yarn, whatever. Don't forget to tag us at Okey Dokeys Crochet so we can all see it. And we'll see you guys later.